Good morning, everyone. This is Kris with Inspired Energy again. Today I have Hartwell. We're continuing our series on human design. This is episode 7. We're going to be discussing the red and the black lines on your chart and the defined and the undefined areas and what each of those are and what they mean. So good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning.
Yes, lovely day today. A little cloudy out there, but we're going to give people some information to brighten their day. So,
yes, we are.
Yes. So to start off, can you explain to us exactly? Oh, and everybody, you'll see a chart on the right-hand side to refer to that Hartwell's going to be explaining what each of these elements are. So can you tell us what the red and the black represent on the chart and why there's two different ones?
Yes, Kris. This is one of the key aspects of human design. Human design calls it the binary. And here, the black comes from the right side of the chart. You see a column there that says the personality column. These are the planetary, and those symbols are planets. Those are the planets' positions that exist at the moment of your birth. And each of those symbols has black numbers beside it, and those are graphed into the design as the black lines. And from the other side, the design column, we have the red lines, and we have those astrological or, those positions of the planets arise from exactly 88 degrees before the moment of your birth.
Why 88 degrees?
Good question. Haven't heard anything about exactly why that is yet.
Yeah. So that must just be part of what was downloaded to him when he was doing the system, or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I hadn't heard that before, so it kind of took me by surprise. I'm like, oh, why 88 degrees? So something is it like, so like we have a knowing in our hearts a few seconds before something happens? It seems like it's almost like that. Like just before you come in, here's what I'm seeing for your future or for your design, right? I don't know. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, you're riffing. I like that. Well, it's sometimes I say it's approximately at the end of your mother's second trimester of pregnancy. But it is an exact calculation.
Okay. Perfect. Well, everything is math in the world anyways, right? So it makes sense that it comes down to an equation. So can you explain to us what the driver, the vehicle, and the passenger are? And can you tell us more about that?
For sure, Kris. And first, we want to say that the red in your chart or the black in your chart is what you think you are. It's everything we think of as ourselves, our personality, and our sense of self arises from the black. And what arises from the red, from the design side of us, is this represents our form consciousness. This represents our body, our vehicle. You could say that this body is a vehicle that we move through life in. And that's represented by the red, and it is not accessible to our conscious mind. You could think of if we think of the red as a vehicle, the black, who we think we are, is the passenger. And there's something called the magnetic monopole, which holds those two things together. So the magnetic monopole, discussing that is outside of the context of today's conversation, but science usually we think of a magnet as having two poles, a north and a south.
Right.
But since human design has been discovered, science has actually confirmed what human design says. You can have a magnet that has only one. It doesn't have two poles. It has only one. And that is what aligns us with our destiny. It is the driver of the car.
So is that what pulls us towards our destiny then? So we're seeking the other end of the pole. So looking for that connection.
Well, there is no other end, remember, because this isn't a bipole magnet. This is a
Right.
monopole, but it does hold us to the course of our destiny. So it, in a sense, guides the driver, you could say. And we are meant to be passengers who sit back and enjoy the ride.
When we're operating as we're meant to operate.
Yes.
Yes. So that's the whole crux of human design, is to learn it so that we can start living our design and enjoying the ride then.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of fighting with it.
Right. Instead of being a backseat driver or a front seat driver, trying to control things.
Yeah, because we all would love control, right? And we all want to think that we know what we're doing.
Yes, we do. And yet a fully half of our programming from the design side of ourselves, the form consciousness, the passenger doesn't even know about it. A human design talks about it like it's a tunnel. If you're looking at a tunnel from the air, you can't see what goes on inside the tunnel.
Right.
You can see if a train or a car comes out the other side, you can see it then, but it's only through, over time, experience and reflection that we come to understand the unconscious side of ourselves.
Right. So then on this chart that's on the screen, there are areas that are white, and then there's areas that are colored in. So you had described those as defined and undefined. Can you explain what those terms mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
And this is the second binary that human design talks about. So we had the first binary, which is the red and the black, the unconscious and the conscious. And now we have the binary of the defined and the undefined. So wherever that chart is colored in, and then there are centers and there are gates and there are channels. So a channel is an unbroken connection between two centers, and a gate is kind of like where it looks like it's halfway there. So everything that's colored in is called definition. It's what operates reliably and predictably and consistently. And that which is white, the centers and the channels and the gates that are white, are where we are open to being conditioned, and where we are open to being it's not consistent, predictable, or reliable in those areas.
So you're influenced by other people around who would be defined in those areas.
Yes, you are influenced in two ways: by other people who come into your aura, and by planets that continue to move through each of the gates.
Okay.
In their own time.
Right.
So the celestial influence and the influence of the auras of other people.
Right. So is there a relationship between the definition and the aura?
Yes. That is, definition is everything. It is the center of our being. It is what defines our life force, and therefore our aura. It also defines our type, and our type, our strategy, and authority rise out of our definition, because this is the center of our being, and over time this is what is unfolding. This is how we evolve. Over time we evolve into the fullest expression of what is defined in our chart.
Right. So then lots of people, ask you, is it better to be defined or undefined? And what do you tell them?
Well, what human design tells us is, no, it isn't better to be undefined, or it isn't better to be defined, even though that's what reliable and consistent in us. It's kind of like day and night. Gifts arise out of the undefined areas of our chart. This is where we play. This is where we explore. This is where we often become wise. So human design says don't look at it that way, because it's not the truth.
it's kind of seems like those areas which we would be undefined in are kind of like invitations for us to play. So things come along in life and you're like, oh, let me explore that. I don't really know what that is. And then you can play with somebody, right? 'Cause
I like your introduction of the word play into the conversation, which is so you.
yeah.
Absolutely. That is where we play. And think of it, the black in us, the defined in us is where we are transmitters.
Okay.
So it's what's describing how our aura affects everyone else. So it's where we're transmitting, but where we're white is where we're receivers. So yeah, that is the place of play in our life.
Right. So it just thought of something else as you said that. So the areas that we're defined in, we are transmitters. So that's what we're emitting to the world. Right?
Yes.
So that's kind of like we're saying, this is who I am. And you're putting out that invitation to play. And those that it resonates with, or those that you make an electromagnetic connection with, will come and play with you. Is that kind of what I'm
Sure, I like that. Yeah. I mean, more and more I'm playing with that idea that we need to be trusting our auras. We need to let our auras do the work and follow our strategy and authority. And then there's a chance of, our passenger enjoying the ride as the vehicle takes us along, the course of our destiny.
Yeah.
But, along the way, we get to play and we become wise.
All right. So, I'm not sure what this is, but what does human design have to say about a debate between nature and nurture? Like, is that the difference between the red and the black, or?
That is the difference between the defined and the undefined.
Okay.
So where we're defined is our nature. That is what's fixed in us, what is consistent. And it's where we're white that that's where we are nurtured by the world around us. We're affected by it too. So we could use other words besides nurturing, because sometimes that effect isn't great. But
sometimes it causes us anxiety and stress, right?
Well, there's a lot of pain in the world, of course. Right. But that's been a lifelong, that's been a debate, for centuries.
Right.
Do we have a destiny? Is something fixed about us? Are we born with something coming in? Or is everything arising out of what we learn from our environment? And this is how human design would say, there's a great part of you which is fixed, which is the defined in you. That's your nature.
Right.
And your aura is communicating whether you intellectually understand who you are or not.
Right.
And then where we're white is where we take in messages from our environment, where we are formed and shaped by that.
Yeah, so it's actually a combination of the two. It's not just one or the other. So,
but just like human design brings so much delineation to some of these concepts that we've long played with. So we could look at a chart and potentially say, this is exactly, what's innate to you, your nature, and this is exactly, this is where your nurture, that the environment has affected you.
Right. So where are we most vulnerable?
We are most vulnerable in the places where we are undefined. So we're more sensitive there, and therefore we're more vulnerable. And, the undefined centers, they reflect and magnify the environment around them. So there's a mirroring effect, but there's also a magnification effect.
Cool. So,
if I could use one brief example, Kris, it's interesting to look at the chart that I've just, I thought might be fun to look at, Angelina Jolie's chart. In the center, which is, the diamond-shaped center in the middle is called the G center. And it's the place of knowing what your role is in life, what your identity is. Our example of Angelina says she has no fixed identity.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore she can be a chameleon. She can play many different roles.
Right.
And so isn't that interesting? Because, as an actor, that might be, I'm sure there are many actors who have defined Gs, but she's not one of them. She can play any role.
But she also has a defined throat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for an actor, that would probably be a really good combination to have.
Indeed, yes. So it as you look into charts, as you start to know a little bit of the vocabulary, you can make some surprisingly accurate perceptions about the people that you look at.
Yeah. And I think too, what I'm learning and what I'm discovering with the people who come and do readings and have these types of readings is they're very interested in how they fit in with other people. And there's people that have said, oh my gosh, this is such a lifesaver. Now I understand my child, or I understand my spouse, and why we're interacting the way that we're interacting, right? So,
yes.
Yeah, this is a very valuable tool for that and learning to negotiate relationships, I think.
Indeed. And a great reminder that to respect each other's uniqueness, and that you and I can both be right, because we have very different ways of seeing the world, and we're designed to see it differently.
Right.
So let's stop trying to win arguments about who's right and who's wrong. We're all unique, and we each have a place and part to play.
Well, thank you for all of this insight today. It's been very, very helpful. And I know all of you out there are wondering, how to get more information, or is Hartwell going to run workshops so they can learn more, that sort of thing. So all those kinds of things are coming. But in the meantime, if you want to book an appointment, you can give us a call here at Clarity, 587-596-3333, and we'd be happy to book an appointment with him. The other thing is next week at 9:30, our next show is on the authentic self and the not self. So you can join us next Wednesday, 9:30 a.m., and we'll be looking into that. So for today, I'm going to say thank you. God bless. Goodbye, Hartwell. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Yep. Goodbye for now.
Okay. God bless.